The sun was just
We need
peeking
to
over
talk
the
about
rugged
this
horizon,
now.
painting
I'm
the
listening,
desert
but this
sky
better
with
be good.
streaks of gold and crimson. When
We
Nayeli,
need to talk
a
about
fierce
what
Apache
happens
woman
next.
with
I
eyes
know,
like
but I'm
storm
not sure we're
clouds,
ready.
moved silently through the canyon, her senses alert to every whisper of wind and crack of dry earth beneath her boots. She had always known the land intimately, each rock and crevice, memorized from countless treks across the territory her people had once called home. Yet today she felt a ripple of unease she could not place. She paused, crouching behind a jagged boulder, and scanned the terrain ahead. A lone rancher's cabin sat precariously at the edge of a plateau, smoke curling lazily from its chimney. Nayeli's mission was simple: retrieve supplies left behind by traders and vanish before anyone could spot her. But fate had other plans. As she crept forward, a sudden shout shattered the morning silence. "Stop, Apache woman!" Nayeli froze, instincts screaming, but it was too late. From the shadows of the surrounding cliffs, rough hands lunged at her, dragging her backward with a force she could barely resist. The world spun in a dizzying whirl of dust and sunlight as she struggled against her captors. Nayeli's heart pounded fiercely, fueled by anger, fear, and disbelief. Why was she being taken? Who could have orchestrated this? She tried to kick, to claw, to bite, but the men were merciless and well-trained. Within moments, she found herself thrown roughly into the back of a wagon, the landscape she had known all her life slipping away behind her. Hours passed in a blur of motion, the wagon rattling over stones and dry riverbeds until the silhouette of a vast ranch emerged in the distance. Nayeli's first impression was that of a fortress, fences tall and imposing, cattle grazing lazily in fields that stretched endlessly, and the main house large and imposing, standing like a monument to wealth and authority. She was pushed through the massive wooden doors into a room dominated by dark oak furniture and a roaring fireplace, the smell of burning wood mingling with the scent of leather and earth. And then she saw him, a tall, broad-shouldered man with sharp, calculating eyes, yet an aura of calm authority. This was the rancher. Nayeli's mind raced with stories of cruel captors and ruthless men, and her pulse quickened. She clenched her fists, ready to fight, ready to die if needed. Yet something in his gaze gave her pause, a mixture of curiosity and respect rather than cruelty. "I'm not here to hurt you," he said, his voice deep and steady, cutting through the tension in the room like a blade. Nayeli's eyes narrowed suspiciously. Every instinct screamed deceit. Every story her people had whispered about outsiders seemed to echo in her mind. "Then why am I here?" she demanded, her voice trembling with defiance and fury. The rancher studied her for a long moment, as though weighing her words against her body language, before answering. "Because you were caught in the wrong place at the wrong time. I didn't ask for you to be brought here, but now that you are, I will treat you fairly." Nayeli's heart refused to settle. She could not tell if this was another trap, another trick to bind her to a fate she did not choose. But the calmness in his manner, the lack of malice, made her wonder, was he truly different from the men who had captured her? Days turned into nights, and Nayeli learned to navigate the rhythm of the ranch. The men who had dragged her there remained distant, as if respecting an unspoken boundary, while the rancher observed her movements with quiet interest. He showed her the lands, the fields, the animals, and gradually, Nayeli began to see him not as a captor, but as a man who carried responsibility and pride in his work. His rough hands could tame horses and mend fences, yet his eyes held a softness that betrayed a capacity for care. One evening, as the sun dipped behind distant mesas, casting a golden glow over the fields, he offered her food by the fire, speaking gently of the dangers that lurked in the wilderness and the respect owed to those who survived it. Nayeli listened cautiously, her walls high, but something shifted within her, a flicker of curiosity, a seed of trust she had not expected to feel. She watched him from the shadows of the barn the next day, seeing how he interacted with the ranch hands, how he treated the animals, how he moved with a grace that belied his rugged exterior. Nayeli began to question the stories she had been told about men like him. Could it be possible that someone could possess strength without cruelty, authority without oppression, and yet, she reminded herself, she was still a prisoner here. She had to remain vigilant, her mind sharp, her spirit unbroken. Each glance at the rancher, each subtle gesture, added layers to her perception, a man not wholly defined by the myths of the outsiders, a man who might yet surprise her entirely. By the end of the first week, Nayeli found herself in a strange limbo. She was still a captive, yet no chains bound her. She was still wary, yet intrigued by the nuances of a man she had once feared. And as she lay under the wide open sky at night, listening to the distant howl of coyotes and the whisper of wind through the sagebrush, she felt a stirring of something unfamiliar, hope. Perhaps, she thought, the world was not as black and white as she had believed. Perhaps courage could take many forms, and perhaps trust, carefully measured, could grow even in the most unlikely of places. And somewhere, deep within her, the notion began to form that the rancher might not be the villain she had feared, but rather someone who could change everything she thought she knew about men, about freedom. And about herself, morning broke over the ranch with a soft amber glow, filtering through the wooden shutters and warming the rough-hewn floors. Nayeli awoke to the distant lowing of cattle and the rhythmic clatter of hooves against dirt, the sounds of the ranch weaving into her. Thoughts like an unfamiliar melody she was slowly learning to recognize. She sat up, her body still tense from the memories of her capture. Yet she felt a strange pull toward the life around her. The rancher had been awake long before her, moving through the fields with practiced efficiency, issuing commands that were met with respect rather than fear. Nayeli observed him silently from the doorway, noting the way his strong hands guided the horses, the way his eyes softened as he interacted with the workers, and a quiet admiration stirred within her. She had been here nearly a month now, yet every day brought a new lesson. The rancher, whose name she had learned was Gabriel, did not speak of her captivity or demand loyalty. Instead, he offered guidance and shared his knowledge of the land. Slowly, Nayeli began to understand the delicate balance of life on the ranch, the rhythms of the animals, the demands of the seasons, the unspoken code of respect between man and nature. Each lesson deepened her understanding of the man who had once seemed so intimidating, revealing layers of kindness and integrity hidden beneath the rugged exterior. Yet trust did not come easily. Nayeli's past had been shaped by betrayal, by cruelty inflicted upon her people, and her instincts were honed for survival, not companionship. She reminded herself constantly she was still a prisoner here, no matter how polite or respectful he appeared. It was during one long afternoon, while tending the fields alongside Gabriel, that the first true connection sparked between them. The sun beat down mercilessly, sweat soaking their clothes as they worked side by side, and Nayeli found herself surprised at how naturally his presence had come to feel. He spoke little, offering instructions and encouragement rather than orders, and when she faltered, struggling to keep pace with the heavy labor, his hand briefly brushed hers, steadying her. The contact, though brief, sent a jolt through her that she neither welcomed nor resisted, a subtle acknowledgement that perhaps there was more to this man than she had first assumed. Their eyes met for a fleeting moment, and something unspoken passed between them, an understanding, a truce, a tentative curiosity. Evenings brought new challenges. Gabriel would often invite Nayeli to sit by the fire, sharing stories of the land, of the people who had come before him, of hardships endured and victories won. He spoke honestly, never condescending, never demanding her admiration, and slowly her walls began to crumble. Nayeli found herself speaking in turn, sharing tales of her people, of the mountains and rivers that had shaped her childhood, of the traditions and lessons passed down through generations. She expected him to dismiss her stories, to belittle the ways of the Apache, yet he listened intently, asking questions, showing a genuine desire to understand. It was in these quiet moments that the truth became undeniable. Gabriel was not the villain she had feared. He was a man of integrity, of strength tempered by respect, and perhaps, just perhaps, someone capable of seeing her not as a captive, but as a person worthy of trust. Days melted into weeks, and the bond between them deepened. Nayeli began to anticipate his guidance, to feel a sense of security she had never known. She discovered laughter in unexpected moments, joy in shared labor, and a quiet admiration for the man who had, unknowingly, earned her cautious trust. Yet danger was never far. Outsiders roamed the lands, some seeking to exploit, others to destroy. Gabriel prepared for threats with a vigilance that both impressed and unsettled. Nayeli, reminding her that freedom was fragile, that trust was earned and could be lost in an instant. But in every challenge, they faced it together, her skills, his strength, their combined instincts, forming an unspoken alliance that strengthened with each passing day. The turning point came one stormy night, when a band of marauders descended upon the ranch, seeking to take what was not theirs. Nayeli's senses, honed from years in the wilderness, allowed her to detect their approach long before the first shout rang out. She alerted Gabriel, and together they moved with precision, guiding the ranch hands, defending the perimeter, and using the terrain to their advantage. Amidst the chaos, Nayeli realized how much she had changed, how much she had come to care not only for the ranch, but for the man who had once seemed so unapproachable. Gabriel fought beside her, his determination fierce, yet his trust in her unwavering, and in that moment, the line between captive and companion blurred completely. By the time dawn broke and the intruders were gone, battered and defeated, Nayeli felt an unfamiliar calm wash over her. Gabriel looked at her with something more than gratitude, something that hinted at understanding, at respect, at a bond forged in fire and trial. She realized that the fear and suspicion that had governed her life were giving way to something new. Loyalty, trust, perhaps even affection. And as she watched him tend to the wounded, speaking softly and carefully, she understood that her life had irrevocably shifted. The man who had captured her by circumstance had shown her freedom in ways she had never imagined. As days passed, the rhythm of the ranch became their shared world. Nayeli and Gabriel continued to work, to learn, to protect, and to trust one another. She began to imagine a future not as a prisoner, but as a partner, someone whose skills, courage, and heart mattered deeply. And every night, as the fire crackled and the stars stretched endlessly overhead, Gabriel's presence reminded her that the world was wider than fear, stronger than pain, and capable of surprising even the most wary heart. To those who hear this story, remember this: courage is not the absence of fear, trust is not given lightly, and true strength lies in respect and understanding. Nayeli and Gabriel's journey reminds us that even in the most unexpected circumstances, bonds can be forged, hearts can heal, and lives can be changed forever. If you've enjoyed witnessing this tale of resilience, bravery, and unexpected friendship, subscribe now to our channel to follow more stories that inspire, excite, and prove that hope can bloom in the wildest places. Don't miss the next adventure waiting just beyond the horizon.